So I want to talk about the SEC teams first because I'm fascinated by how this has to work. Like, because I'm reading this and I'm like, now I'm piecing together how the season had to go to get here. So
Right.
Texas wins. We can say Texas is a one-loss team, probably is likely given their schedule. They're at Florida, they're at Georgia, but it is a somewhat more manageable schedule than most SEC teams. But they are also at Ohio State. So,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't be ranked number one unless they are undefeated or only one loss, probably.
Well, we don't know that for sure. This is what I struggle with. It's like you don't think that the SEC champ might just be number one, even if
they have two losses.
Team? You don't think
no,
so?
because the Big Ten champs probably. Now maybe the SEC Big Ten champs both have two losses, but
like
I don't know. I mean, I think probably if it's Texas, unless they lost to Ohio State, which they might. But unless they lost to Ohio State, I think you're probably talking about a 12-1 Texas.
Yeah.
In that scenario.
Yeah.
So,
but also losing to Ohio State on the road by 3 and then going through
wouldn't
losing
one especially if Ohio State's really good.
I still think that they'd have a pretty good chance of being the 1 seed if they come out of the SEC as champs, especially if they beat Alabama or Georgia in the SEC championship game or something. Like there's definitely multiple paths for the SEC to be the number 1 overall seed than other conferences have.
I think it's more likely they have to be 12-1. The way you've got this ranked, that means they beat LSU in the SEC title game.
Yes.
So, yeah, producer River noting Texas does not. That's not true. Texas does play one of the other SEC teams that Hari has, and they play at Georgia. But, so Texas beats LSU in the SEC title game. LSU being the SEC title game probably means they beat Alabama.
Yes.
In the regular season and being ranked ahead of Alabama.
In the regular season and in the postseason. I gave Baton Rouge the most pornographic bracket I could have come up with. So
LSU is probably in this scenario 11-2.
Yes.
Or 10-3. Because I don't think the SEC championship game loss is going to hurt them that much in the seeding.
And the way that I looked at it too was that the way that I seeded it, they could have won or lost the Clemson game, and I think the seeds would be the same. So like it was like kind of like a way, like a get out of jail free card.
Right, because you have Clemson seated above them, and that you're not seeding Clemson there because of the seeding rule.
They won the ACC in my
right,
scenario.
But you're also saying they would have been probably number 3 anyway if they seeded it straight, right?
I think that if Clemson beats LSU and wins the ACC, and Clemson loses to LSU and wins the ACC, there's a high likelihood that they're 3 either way.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what happens against South Carolina too. So
it also depends too on like how the Big Ten and the SEC champs also do. But I assume I think this year that that would probably be a pretty safe proposition. So I guess I didn't put a hard line in the sand in terms of, but I had LSU winning the first game. I had LSU winning the opener in my bracket.
So LSU beats Clemson, LSU beats Alabama. So that's going to give them a mulligan there to lose to South Carolina or Florida or Ole Miss or one of those.
And that's why I have them at 6 because I don't have them like running through the schedule. And I just like realized too that what I have here is probably highly unlikely. I don't know that they would be able to beat Clemson and Alabama both twice. That would be an insane season. But so if you want to say
you beat them once, you can beat them twice.
No, I know. But like that's that. If you said LSU in order to make it, well, actually, I don't have Clemson winning. I don't know what I'm talking about. But beating Alabama twice would be difficult.
Yeah,
especially because I think there are games on the road. So it's
right. The regular season games in Tuscaloosa, you would actually have this game in Baton Rouge. This playoff game would be in Baton Rouge because LSU would be the higher seeded team. So I find that very interesting. And then you got Alabama. So Alabama has to be 10-2 in this one, I think.
Yeah, I think so. No, see, here's the thing. Like, I don't know about has to.
Well, no, okay. You have Georgia ahead of Alabama. I'm sorry. So the way you have it is Georgia has to win the Georgia Alabama game in this scenario.
Yes, 100%.
So Alabama has one loss to Georgia, and then they have another loss somewhere in there. And Georgia,
they would lose to LSU.
Okay, so that's right. So you'd have Alabama losing to Georgia and LSU, and then they make the playoff because they win the. That actually seems like a very realistic scenario.
Yeah, because
very realistic.
When I was looking at the schedule, Andy, and you check me because it's always you're not able to talk about it out loud with somebody else while you're doing it. But I had them losing to LSU and Georgia and then winning the rest of their games. But if you look at the rest of their games, there's a chance at the end of the year that they will say they don't have any quality wins, which is what has them down lower in the seeding.
Right. They need Missouri and Tennessee and South Carolina to be good.
If they lose both of their premier games, then that's going to be a talking point in November. So I
still think they're getting in at 10-2, especially if those games are close.
Yeah, but
the Georgia and LSU games, like if that's close, I think they still get in. So that's very interesting to me because and now let's go back to Georgia. Let's look at Georgia's schedule because you've got them beating Alabama. Theoretically, we should assume they lose to Texas in this, and then they've probably lost.
They're both 10-2, but Georgia's 10-2 is markedly better, and they have a head-to-head win.
But it means that. But the thing is, it means their 2 losses are kind of bad.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm sorry. One of the losses is Texas in this, but then it means they lost to like Tennessee or Auburn or Ole Miss or Florida or Georgia Tech.
Yeah. Like I think that their 10-2 is similar to last year's 10-2.
Yeah, but they'll have a win against Alabama.
They'll have a quality win, and their schedule and their record strength will be better than Alabama's, which is the distinction between 8 and 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is fascinating. It absolutely fascinating. And I want to point out. So Ari used the current seeding rules, the ones that are in effect, as far as we know right now, where the top 4 ranked conference champs are the top 4 seeds and get the buys. So that's why BYU is the 4 seed. It may or may not be why Clemson is the 3 seed. We talked about that a second ago, but like, do you think Clemson can just be a top 4 seed?
Yes.
Like, even if they seed it straight, that Clemson
of course,
can.
have them in the title game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that like it's going to be hard for the ACC or the Big 12 to ever be a top 2 seed in this system as a projection without something going haywire in the other 2 conferences.
Well, here's the thing with Clemson that makes them unique in this.
They have 2 SEC teams on their schedule.
Right. And if they both happen to be good, like if LSU and South Carolina are both good in the SEC, like I doubt, like if Clemson beats them both, I doubt both of them could also make the playoff. But if Clemson beats them both, and then South Carolina is 9-3, and LSU is 10-2 or 9-3, like it will go a long way toward lifting. Like Clemson could be number 1 in the country in that scenario.
Missing, I think, and what I try to consider, and I don't know. I know you're very high on Louisville, but it's possible that at the end of the year, Clemson, if they beat LSU, doesn't have another marquee win. Like if you look at their actual schedule, they have some tough games.
You're assuming South Carolina isn't good. Here's the ones.
South Carolina is just 8-4, which I think is probably the most likely outcome of the season. Like I don't know if you're assuming that South Carolina is going to be a playoff team, but if you think they're 8-4, I think beating them will look pretty, but I don't think it's going to boost them. Like
no, it's not. They would need South Carolina to be 9-3 or better.
Yeah,
including a loss to Clemson.
Yeah.
Yeah.